Get me started. Um, I felt led to talk about the reality, excuse me, that God is with you. God is with you. I think that's something that's missing. We tend not to think very often that God is with me. A lot of people don't think that. My bride, she left. She went up to the Cohens. We were talking about this, and she said most people think that God's not thinking about them unless they're thinking about God. And I think that was an astute observation. Most people, during their course of their life, have this idea that God's only paying attention when they're paying attention. Other than that, they go about their life without the presence of God. But when they need Him, they turn to Him. Then He's paying attention because we're paying attention. And that's one of the problems. And it's important to come to a deeper realization of the fact that God is with you. And I chose as a jump off Jeremiah chapter 17:10, where God reveals, I, Adonai, search the heart. Adonai is translated in English like the Lord. It doesn't do a just translation. It's a possessive Lord. A Lord to be possessed. Search the heart. I try the mind to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his deeds. Of course, this is a difficult time in history where God wrote a bill of divorcement, which is the format of the book of Jeremiah. Israel had become guilty of adultery because we had gone after other gods, which for Israel is adultery because we were married to God. And therefore he divorced us for the biblical grounds of adultery. And he says, look, I search the heart. I know what's in your heart. I know what's in your mind, and I give you according to your ways and according to your deeds. And that's important. And one more introductory scripture is Tehillim, is Psalms. Proverbs, something, I don't look at my notes. Psalms 15:3, the eyes of Adonai are everywhere. Everywhere. He observes the wicked and the good. Even the wicked, God is there. You need to know that. Even with the wicked, God is there. God is with the wicked. He is with the good. He is with the wicked. His eyes are everywhere. And I think it would help us if we would come to that realization that no matter what is going on in the hectic turmoil of our lives, God is with us. He's right there. Whether you're doing well, whether you're doing poorly, God is there. Now, the bulk of my message is simply Tehillim, Psalms 139. I want to walk through Psalms 139. That's the basis of, I think, a window into that reality of God's presence with us. It's introduced as a song that was given to the music director by the king, who is the psalmist David. And just like, I'm assuming that I forget which last song. Is that something you wrote, Mitch? Yeah, it's something that Mitch wrote up here that we did. The King David, who was a psalmist, wrote this song for the music director, something to be sang in the tabernacle of David, which set on Mount Zion. Adonai, you searched me and you know me. Lord, you You searched me and you know me. And that's a reality, not just the high points of our life, but at the low points of our life. God said, I will never leave you nor forsake you, no matter what you get yourself into. I mean, this is a shepherd boy who became a king who was guilty of adultery, first-degree murder, had all kind of issues in his life that weren't tantamount. Before he was king, he was running and hiding from Saul, who wanted him dead. But he knew, you searched me. You knew me. No matter where I am or where I go or what I'm going through, God is searching me. He knows me. He looks at my heart. He looks at my mind. He sees everything. Nothing is hidden from God. And then it's an allegorical treatise on how much God is with us in this psalm. It is a song dedicated to the reality that no matter what we are going through, God is with us. No matter what we're going through, God is with us. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you're there. You're there. The next verse, whenever I sit down or stand up, you know it. God knows whether I'm standing or sitting. He actually knows. You discern my thinking from afar. That is not an analytical distance. That's a reality because God is all-knowing and lives in timelessness. Eternity is not a long time, it's without time. He knows what I'm going to be thinking about tomorrow. Whether it's good or bad. Whether I'm standing or sitting. He knows. Whether I'm standing or I'm sitting, he discerns my thoughts. The next verse is, you observe my journeying and my resting. You are familiar with all my ways. Whether I'm moving, whether I'm stationary, whether I'm going somewhere, whether I'm sitting on the couch. Last night, I don't know what time it was, Joni came in. I was sitting on the couch enjoying the air conditioning. Got here a little bit early, got here around 5 o'clock, and I met Bob and Jeff and Sam leaving, who had been working in the building. And as they were leaving, I was coming in, and I was running around just seeing what needs to be done and trying to decide, do we want a picnic or do we want a work party? And I decided we need a work party before it gets hot. I was thinking about having a picnic next Sunday, but so you know what, we better get a little bit of work done before summer comes. And I was running around. I was in and out of the shed. I'd go in the shed. I'd come out. I'd lock it. I'd walk around the building. I'd unlock the shed, come back up, unlock the shed. It's like I kept trying to figure out things. Larry has his habit of straightening things out. I can't find anything. And I'm planning on what we can do is if we get any help next Sunday morning and do it. It was kind of hot out, and so I was just running all around. There's a lot going on. There's always a lot going on. And then I came in, I just turned off lights and just sat there on the couch in the air conditioning thinking, it's nice to sit in the cool. It's nice to sit in the cool. But I'm telling you, God was with me, and I was running around, and I was doing this. And when I sat down, He's there. He's there. It's not. He's not checking off. Okay, I did this kind of things to prepare for work, which to me is ministry. And then I went in there and I just turned off the light and just sat there and enjoyed the air conditioning. And Joni came in because she gets here early too because we all have things to do. She said, "Are you resting?" It's not really. I said, "I'm just resting, yes, as opposed to running around." But, you know, whether I'm moving, whether I'm sitting, whether I'm standing, whether God's there, He's with me. He's with me. You're familiar with all my ways. Nothing's hidden from him. Everything I do, God is with me. He's absolutely familiar with all my ways. And then the next verse, even before a word is on my tongue, Adonai, you know all about it. That's the omniscient God. He knows all things. He sees. He doesn't have a past and a future. We do. So what is future for us is not future for God. Even before I say something, God knows what I'm going to say. Not because he controls me, because he's already there. He's the I am. I am that I am. I live in the now. He lives in the eternity where there is no time. So even before I say something, God not only knows what I'm going to think, God knows what I'm going to say. He's that much with me. It doesn't matter. If I stand up, he knows it. If I sit down, he knows it. If I'm moving, he knows it. If I rest, he knows it. He knows what I'm going to do this afternoon whenever I get home. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do because it depends on how brutal the annual meeting is. But God knows what I'm going to do. He knows exactly what I'm going to do. He knows exactly what's going to happen. Larry is running out to bait Yeshua this afternoon. It's his turn to go out. And God knows how he's going to get through security, which is always the first step. You got to drive there, then the fun starts. Especially him, because he has metal knees, which confuses the security system there. But God knows. He knows who's going to show up in the room. God knows if he has enough donuts or one too many. See, one of the keys to that congregation, Larry wanted to take them donuts, so he's got donuts to take. You got to take for one donut for each person. You can't have one extra. You can't be one short. You don't know who's going to come. God knows. It's what makes it interesting. Everything. He knows what I'm going to say. I don't have a clue what I'm going to say. I don't know where I'm going. Last week's message got politically challenging. I had no idea what I was going to say. God knew I was going to say it. He knows all about it. The next verse, you hem me in behind and before you laid your hand upon me. Hemming is that in older days, you put a blanket around you and somebody sews it up for you. You hem me in. It's something that was done. I don't think I want to get into that. It's just that hemming you in, it was a tradition, a long-term tradition for a lot of years. It doesn't happen anymore because we're more politically correct nowadays and everything is legal and everything is good. But you hem me in. I'm absolutely surrounded by God. You hem me behind, before, and laid your hand upon me. He wraps himself around me, puts his hand on my head. No matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, no matter what I'm going through, no matter what is happening to me, God is there. When I lose my temper, God knew I was going to lose my temper, and he stays. People have these odd theologies as the Holy Spirit has to leave every time I get angry, every time I say an inappropriate remark. And I say, that's like the yo-yo. Let's see, out, in. And not to be, to be real. The concept of the rapture. Messiah comes back, we all meet him in the air and then come back and reign with him. I call that the yo-yo theology. Go up and meet him so we can come back and reign. It's like yeah. God's there. He surrounds me completely. And it's an intimate concept. Not that you're before me and behind me. You hem me in. You wrap me up and then lay your hands on me. You go with me wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, whatever is going on. And as he's doing this, he starts thinking about how incredible that thought is, which is why in the next verse he says, that's not the next verse. I want to go to 6, that's 7. Such knowledgeable is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. I can't even call, I'm saying something that's true, but I can't grasp it. One of the things we were doing at the Friday night prayer meeting last night, which we do every Friday, we do a prayer meeting. We never know what we're going to do. Is talk about the depths of some of the things we think we know. But we talked about, among the things we talked about is how to read the Bible. How to read the Bible in a functional way so that if you read it for 45 minutes a day, 5 days a week in the year, you will read it 3.5 times. And it took a while because I wasn't prepared for that. It was just a question that was asked. And then I started sharing something that I studied for more than a month for me. And I will tell you, because you can pray that God's will be done. I have read the Bible hundreds of times. I have. It's not that hard. That's why I showed everybody last night how to do that. And when I say it's all about God and the Messiah, and there's two truths, the all and the nothing, and God is the all. Why did I say God the all and not God and the Messiah is all? Well, number one, that wouldn't make any sense, because that's not the all. And I started meditating and contemplating, is the all of God the same thing as the all of Messiah? That's a simple question. If you say God is the all, that's true. If you say Messiah is the all, that's true. And the question is that the same all? And I spent more than a month on that and came to the conclusion it's a totally different all. And it's something that is just so intimate and deep that I would like to teach it, like a few other things I would like to teach. It's something that I have unpackaged, spent more than a month on. And it's still too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. I can say it, kind of. I can sense it, kind of. But God's glory, to try to break that down into simple messages to pass it on to people, just for me to attain it. I can say something that I know is true, and I still can't comprehend it. God's ways are so spectacular in the limitation of our creation, we do not know it. But the reality is, He is always with me all the time, every moment, good or bad, moving, resting, standing, sitting. Knows our thoughts before we think them, knows what we're going to say before we say them. And He stays with it. He's never with me. He says, it's just hard to comprehend. It's too wonderful, too lofty for me to attain. And then He does what I would consider normal. When you get to that point, I can't grasp this, but, next verse now, verse 7, where can I go from your ruach, from your breath, from your wind, from your spirit? Where can I go? Where can I flee from your presence? How does that concept of the presence of God being with me every moment of every day, completely hemming me in, surrounding me, no matter what I'm doing, no matter what I'm thinking, no matter where I am, no matter what is happening, God is with me. Where can I go from your ruach? Where can I flee from your presence? This is a man who had, at this point in time, committed adultery and covered up a first-degree murder. And it's like, wow, and you were with me. I thought I was kind of getting away with something. I can't get away with anything because even before I did it, you knew I was going to do it. And then he simply walks through the flow of thought that entails how real God's presence is with me. Verse 8, the next verse reads, if I go up to heaven, you're there. If I make my bed in Sheol, look, you're there too. So, as my wife was pointing out, when people come into a congregation that is leading them in praise and worship and hopefully a biblical message, they attain a closeness to God where at least we have an awareness of His presence. But then when you get into the week and the world stops happening to you, God will wait for you until next weekend, where you have time to pay attention to His reality. So if I make my bed in heaven, if I'm really being spiritual, if I'm doing something, the prayers that I just rewrote prayers for us not long ago, because my wife and I, believe it or not, don't pray the same. We don't pray the same. We don't read the Bible the same. We're like most couples. We're not alike. We're opposites. But that's what is strength in a marriage. She devours the Bible where I meditate on it. We talk about a lot of things. We like to, before we go to bed at night, let's say an evening prayer together. We sit together on a couch, somebody holds it, and we say the same prayer, and we get up in the morning, let's just say a prayer. We're starting the day, we're ending the day. By then, we've both done a lot with God, but because you have to be out of the bedroom area into the living area. And we connect. We want to connect with God as the last thing and the first thing. We, as a couple, choose to connect with God together. At those instances, like, God is real. And then something happens. It's like, I just forget about God. And life happens. And you get busy. How many people miss a prayer meeting, miss a service, miss this, miss that, miss something out because life happens? Because life happens. It happens to all of us. It happens to all of us. 2 Fridays ago, we prayed for Michaeline's shoulder. Last Friday, she wasn't here because she has a torn rotator cuff. So you can pray for her if you didn't know that. Life happens. And because we were talking, because she's part of our Friday night prayer group, it's like, what can she do? Well, I have some experience there. My body has been brutalized. And here's how you do this. Here's you do something. But the ultimate thing is, if I make my bed in Sheol, that's translated hell. Hell has a lot of pictures that are taught in Christianity. Sheol is Kidron Valley. If you have the valley, when you're in Forsake, Mount Zion Hotel, and you have that valley, and you look up, the next valley is Jerusalem. That's Mount Zion. And you have that valley. It wraps around. That's the Kidron Valley. That's where they used to burn the garbage and the children for Molech worship, which happened in this country as well. I investigated one of those issues that was going on with a group that is reasonably well known, and very few people know that it's a practice of Molech. You take your baby, you throw them in the fire. If Molech doesn't want the baby, he throws them back. And Molech has never thrown one back. Now, that's not what they call it, but they do it. You know, that's hell. That's one of the first things. I was involved in a joint task force. And among the things we heard this was happening, and it was a private property, a private group, and like, are they really doing this kind of things? You know, that's Sheol. That's hell. That's the dark place. That's the dark place. But God's there. If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I make my bed in hell, you're there. Next verse, 7. If I take the wings of the dawn and settle on the other side of the sea, that's a concept of a dove that takes off in the idiom of the day. And I jump in and I go to the other side of the sea. In this particular instant, the picture is probably the Mediterranean Sea, by the way, just in case you don't know that. And the next verse says, even if I do that, even there your right hand will lead me, your right hand will lay hold of me. Even if I just and go and leave, get out of here, go. Your hand's there leading me. You lay hold of me with your hand. You're there. Can't run away from the presence of God. Think of the prophet Jonah trying to get away from the presence of God. He took a boat. Adam in the garden hid behind a tree. I'm going to get away from the presence of God. No matter where I go, even trying to get away from the presence of God, you're with me. You're with me. God is with you. No matter what is going on, God is with you. Even when you make bad choices, God is with me. And then the next verse is, if I say, surely darkness covers me, night keeps light at a distance from me. That's one of those deep, dark places that we can find for ourselves. You can get in this deep, dark place because, as I said last week, you are at war. And you get into these dark places. And one of the biggest challenges faced in the world today, as crowded as the world is, everybody in the world, practically everybody, feels like they're alone. Practically one of the things that you find out if you have a heart for the lost, and you actually go with our Go team, we go door to door and just say, can we pray for you? We talked about last night during the run-up to the Hope Fest. The team ran into a Jewish woman in a house, and none of us were with them at that point. And they wanted to pray for her, and she said, I don't need your prayer. I pray. And I said, I hope you can handle that better, you know. Because the reality, everybody needs prayer. We have to develop a heart. But if you find yourself in that dark place where there absolutely is no light, the next verse says, even darkness is not dark for you. Night is as bright as day. Darkness and light are alike. I can find myself in a dark place. God cannot. There's a Jewish story. I don't know where it comes from. It's in the Agadah. It's an ancient story. That there was a discussion going on between the darkness of a cave and the light of the daytime, the light of the sun. And each would try to explain to the other what it's like. The light would say, this is what it's like, and the darkness would say, this is what it's like. And neither could comprehend. And so they made a decision. And at an appointed time, the darkness would come into the light and show the light what darkness was. And then the light would come into the cave to see what darkness was. And at the appointed time, the darkness came out into light and was blinded and said, I can't handle this. This is too intense. I must go back. And he ran back into the cave. And the light came into the cave and said, where's the darkness? Now that's what the psalmist is saying. Look, even I'm in a dark place. Darkness isn't dark for you. Darkness is dark for me. I'm in a dark place. That's part of the war inside of me. I could find myself in a dark place where I'm abandoned and alone or evil. It's one of the things we have at Beit Yeshua. The guys at one point in their life were evil. They were actually evil. They were evil. They did evil things, unspeakable things, evil things. We try not to find out. But now they're in the light. But even when they were back there doing the dark things, God was with them. God was with them. There is no darkness to God. No matter how dark it is for us, God is there. Night is bright a day. To God, darkness and light are alike. And as you're dealing with the reality of God in your life, it goes back to the beginning of your life. In the next verse, it says, for you have created my conscience. You knit me together in my mother's womb. You created my mind. You created my mind that has thoughts. You created that, and you knitted me together in my mother's womb. In other words, when I was talking, oh boy, who was I talking to? I was talking to somebody. If it was you, don't be embarrassed, because I don't remember. I don't think it was this congregation. There was a mother talking about her children who have distanced themselves. And this is something for all you mothers. This is something that I believe, and it's pretty much a traditional concept in historic Judaism, that if you were a mother, every child you have became an eternal being inside of you. Dad showed up, but inside each mother, any child that you had became an eternal being within you, which makes you a God to your children. Just like Moses was a God to Moses, I'm not saying it makes you God. It makes you a God to your children, which means you have a spiritual authority over your children all the days of their life, no matter what they do, no matter where they go, no matter what happens to them. All mothers, I believe this, have absolute spiritual authority that never ends. It's there, which is why every couple knows if you have children, children are always closer to mom than to dad. Even the sons call mom. They call dad, there's a real problem. God put us together in our mother's womb. That's how much he knows us. He knit us together in the womb, which is like awesome, and which is why in the next verse it says, I praise you. I'm awesomely, wonderfully made, wonderful your works. And my soul knows that very well. I mean, when I was in my mother's womb, my wife's up with the Cohen. She's babysitting her mom now. And the reality is my wife came to being in her mom's womb. There's that connection that can't be undone. And God was there. God was there. Even when we were formed, I am awesomely, wonderfully made. As most of you know, any of you who have traveled around the world in ministry, Several of us have gone around the world in ministry, and you can go in some pretty barren places, rough places, and even there you can tell God is real by His creation. You can wonder at the creation of God, which is a revelation of the Creator God. You can wonder. You could see it. You can see God in creation. It testifies to who He is. God is so wonderful. He knit me together in my mother's womb. Therefore, He's always been with me. He has always been with me. And my soul knows this. I know this. It's kind of a little bit bigger than I can grasp in my head. My mind can't grasp this. My soul knows this. This is a truth. This is a reality. You are with me. Verse 15, my frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Now, the Jewish concept of this is a lot deeper than most people can grasp. And it's only a Jewish tradition, a Jewish fable, a story, that at the time of creation, God created every soul that would ever exist. And then the appropriate time, He puts that soul into a woman, and it grows. He knows exactly how many people are going to be because He has stockpile souls. Now, I'm not saying that that's biblical, because it's not. That is not biblical. That is a Jewish fable. But I understand it. My frame was not hidden you when I was made in the secret place. The secret place is the moment of conception, if you will. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, ties to the concept that before God created, He knew we'd be here today. He knew you would be sitting in this sanctuary today. He knew I'd be giving a message in this congregation today, that Mitch will be singing a song that he wrote for this congregation today. And I'm telling you, if you saw us as teenagers, you may not think we would have been here. And the reality is, if I saw you as teenagers, except those of you who are teenagers, I may not have thought maybe you'll be here today, because I didn't plan on being here today. Even before, in the secret place, in the depths of the earth, I was there. Verse 16, your eyes saw me when I was unformed. Before I was anything, you saw me. In your book were written the days that were formed when not one of them had come to be. In other words, in God's book, it tells the whole story of my life, which I haven't finished living yet. Now, I'm not predestined to do anything, as in God is not going to force me to conform to what He wrote about me. I'm saying He's already seen my whole life, and it's all mapped out. Even before I was born, He knew what I was going to do every moment of every day of my life. Not because He coerced me or forced me. He knew what I was going to do. When I was yet unformed, He wrote in a book all of my days before there was any of them. Verse 17, that amazement, how precious are your thoughts, O God, how great is the sum of them. Wow. That's a wow. Because this is a truth that my mind can't grasp, but my soul understands. How precious are your thoughts. This is something that's spectacular. Next verse, were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of the sand. When I'm awake, you're there. When I'm awake, I'm still with you. One of the things we pray in our prayer at night is like, I'm getting ready to go to sleep. Okay? It says something like that. I'm getting ready to go to sleep. But if you wake me up, I will wait for you on the night watches, and it's all scriptural. We pray scripture a lot. You're there. Even when I wake up, God's there. When I'm going to sleep, God is there. When I wake up, God is there. God is always there. God is always there. And now as he's gotten intimate with God, there's a transition. You have to see this transition. I believe the transition to Psalm comes from growing in the understanding of the intimacy of God. Now I'm intimate with God. Your works, if I could count them, they outnumber the stars. Wow, I have a spectacular God. And when you connect with God, you start sensing his heart. When you draw close to God, you sense his heart. This is something that I practice with God has led Agatha and I to go through practices together where we read each other's heart. And he's led us through lessons to learn by teaching us not just to pay attention to what we are saying, but what's happening in our hearts. It's a practice that he has taken us through. It's that we want to have that connection. And that's the connection with God. And when you connect with God, you start sensing things, and you sense the heart of God. And when you sense the heart of God, it's when you're in that intimate place where you let go of who you are and identify with who God is, you start sensing what God senses, which is why you transition into the next verse, verse 19. If only you would slay the wicked, O God. Away from me, you bloody men. Now he's starting to reject the evil of the world. When I get close to God, I realize how evil the world is. When I really get intimate with God, I see the evil of the world. If only you would slay the weak, and oh God, away from me, you bloody men. I want to just get away from the evilness of the world that I am in. Next verse. For they speak about you with wicked intent. Your enemies reproach you in vain. The world is a wicked place. It's a wicked place. The next verse, 21. Do I not hate those who hate you, Adonai? Do not loathe those who rise against you? Now that I'm with you, I see the evil of the world. Before I was close to you, I didn't realize how evil the world was. Because we as a nation have become desensitized to the evilness that is in the world. We have television shows and government edicts that go against the knowledge of God. And we say, well, that's okay, because that's the way it is in the world today. When you get close to God and you say, whoa, that's horrible. That's evil. I hate those that you hate. I loathe those who rise against you. Verse 22, I hate them with a total hatred. I consider them my enemies. Now, before I was close to God, I just accepted, well, that's the way the world is. That's the way the world is. Can't do anything about it. That's the way the world is. But not when I get close to God. Now I see the world as it is. It's absolutely evil and wicked. And then it comes to a conclusion with two verses that hang in my bathroom in front of the toilet. So I see it all the time, the next two verses. Verse 20, search me, O God, and know my heart. Examine me and know my anxious thoughts. That's an invitation. See, once you've come to the conclusion of the intimacy God has with you, it's like, whoa, the world really is bad. It's evil. It's absolutely evil. That's like when people started contacting me about my political incorrectness last week. I was brazen enough to say there's only men and women. Oh. That offends the majority aspect of society today. And people who let me know that they were unhappy that I had said that, I always say the same thing. If I'm doing something that's anti-biblical, tell me about it. If I say anything that's anti-biblical, anytime I teach something, look in the Bible. If I teach you something that's anti-biblical, come to me and say, you taught us something that's anti-biblical, because I can make a mistake. I can make a mistake, and I could just go on a tangent. It's like, well, no, that's not what I meant to say. I misspeak, which is a mistake, which God knows. If you catch me, say you made a mistake. You said something was not biblical. But if I say something is biblical and you think I'm wrong, well, take it up with God. It is what is. Search me, God. Know my heart. Examine me and know my thoughts. It's an invitation. Since God is intimate with me, be intimate with me. Search me. Search me. Know my heart. Examine me. Know my anxious thoughts. The next verse. And see if there be any offensive way within me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Every time I go to the bathroom, I see that and I pray that. That's been there for years and years and years. Because I'm serious. I want God to search me out and know me. I invite him. He's there anyway. I need to repeat time after time after time. Search me, know my heart, examine me, know my anxious thoughts, and see if there's any offensive way within me, and lead me along the eternal way. I want God to reveal anything in me that's offending him, because I need to know that. I want to know that. I'm desperate to know that. Because he knows it anyway, I need to know he knows that. And let him lead me out of that onto the eternal way. And we'll close with just a couple more scriptures. Isaiah 43:2. Isaiah 43:2 was 100 years before Jeremiah, 100 years before the divorce, 100 years where the prophet said, Ephah Hagatz, where is the bill of divorcement? You're running around like a harlot. How can you act like you're not married when you're married? How can you do this? And he's talking to us as a nation separated from God, who is our husband for another 100 years. Jeremiah, Hine Hagat, here's your bill of divorcement. And he says, look, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. Or through the rivers, they will not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, nor the flame burn you. You're going to go through some hard times because of separation from God. A time of separation from God is a different place. If you're going through the waters, God's there. You're going through the rivers, God is there. Walking through the fire, God is there. God takes you through the fire not to burn you, but to purify you. It's part of the warfare in me. You want to purify gold or any metal. All you have to do is bring it to the boiling point, and the dross floats to the surface. There was a time in my life in high school where I worked in steel mills, and you would melt down galvanized steel, and you'd get this dross come up, and then the real fun job was to be the one that scraped the dross off the top. It was one of those half-hour on, half-hour off, because it was really hot. And I did that on occasion when there was a shutdown in some mills. And I transferred just to stay working. That's when I was in high school. It was hot. It was a difficult job. But you know what? As difficult that was, it's real. And that's the way I am. I want God to take me through the fire if that's what it takes to purify me. And I invite him to do so. He's with me. He's with me, and he will take me through the valley. He will take me through the flood. He will take me through the water. He will take me through the fire. Not to punish us, but to purify us. And my final verse is at the end of Bereshit, of Genesis. And it's about the promise we have for the land of Israel, which Rabbi Isaac talked about, the miracle of the rebirth of Israel, the miracle of the liberation of Jerusalem. These are major, major things. And God said at that point, way back then, before Israel as a nation was a nation, frankly, He said, behold, I am with you, and I will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, for I will not forsake you until I've done what I promised you. This is when he's sending us down into Egypt to let the nations of the promised land get evil enough that they deserve to be annihilated. It was going to take 400 years. The United States is less than 250 years old. For 400 years we said, well, the nations of that land of promise got into such depravity that they deserved to be wiped out. And I'm telling you, that's the reality. God says, wherever you go, I'm with you. I gave you this land, now leave. Go live in a foreign land for 400 years. Then you can have the land. There's the deal. Here's your inheritance. Now you walk away from it in 400 years. You get it. God is with us. The presence of God is so real. So real, no matter where you are, no matter what you're going through. Even when you get angry with God and shake your fist at him. Yeah, he knew you were going to do that anyway. For every time I think, oh, God said, I don't know why you're surprised that was going to happen. God is never shocked by the mistakes that we make. Like, oh, I'll take my Holy Spirit for you. Straighten out, I'll put it back. So it's like, kind of negates that I will always be with you. If I make my bed in heaven, if I make my bed in hell, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. God is with us. And his reality is something that we could partner with to become a holier people. You want to be holy? Let God be God in your life every moment of every day and not just on Shabbat. Be blessed, everybody. Shabbat shalom.